The transport shuttle shook as it entered the docking bay. Taiho gripped the metal seat beneath him and waited. Through the small window, he could see the Galactic Defense Academy for the first time. It was a massive station, built from dark metal and floating in the orange light of a dying star. The star was old and weak, but it still burned. That was the point. The Academy wanted its cadets to train in the shadow of death itself. The shuttle door opened with a hiss. Taiho stood up, grabbed his single bag, and stepped out. He was the only human on the shuttle. He was the only human among the 300 cadets who would train here this year. In fact, he was the first human accepted into the Academy in 40 years. The last one had failed within 2 weeks. The one before that had died during a combat exercise. Humans were not welcome here. Everyone knew that. Taiho knew it better than anyone. As he walked through the docking bay, he felt the stares. Aliens of all shapes and sizes stopped what they were doing to look at him. Some had scales, some had fur. Some had skin that glowed with strange light. All of them looked at Taiho like he was something strange, something wrong. He heard whispers as he passed. Is that a human? They actually let one in? Look how small it is. How does it even survive? Taiho did not respond. He kept his eyes forward and walked toward the registration desk. A tall alien with gray skin and 3 eyes sat behind the counter. The alien looked at Taiho for a long moment before speaking. Name: Taiho, human. Cadet application number 774. The alien typed something into a glowing screen. Barracks 7, down the hall, 3rd left, 5th door. Training begins at 0600 tomorrow. Do not be late. Taiho nodded and walked away. The hallways of the academy were wide and cold. The walls were made of the same dark metal as the outside, and the lights above gave everything a pale blue color. Taiho passed groups of alien cadets who stopped talking when they saw him. Some laughed quietly. Others just stared with expressions he could not read. He found Barracks 7 without trouble. The door slid open when he approached, and he stepped inside. The room was long and narrow, with rows of beds on each side. About 20 cadets were already inside, unpacking their things or talking with each other. When Taiho entered, all conversation stopped. One cadet stood up from his bed. He was tall and covered in black scales that caught the light like glass. His eyes were yellow and had thin vertical pupils like a snake. He walked toward Taiho slowly, his clawed feet clicking on the metal floor. "A human," the alien said. His voice was low and rough. "I heard rumors, but I did not believe them." Taiho looked up at him. The alien was almost 2 meters tall. Taiho barely reached his chest. "I am Rilo," the alien continued. "Sethrin, my people, have served in the galactic military for 6,000 years. We have honor. We have strength. We have history." He leaned down, bringing his face close to Taiho's. "What do humans have?" Taiho did not step back. "A bag," he said, "and a bed assignment." He walked past Rilo and found an empty bed near the far wall. He could feel every eye in the room watching him as he set down his bag and began to unpack. No one spoke to him. No one offered help or welcome. That was fine. He had not expected any. That night, Taiho could not sleep. The bed was hard. The air was cold, and the sounds of alien snoring filled the room. He lay on his back and stared at the ceiling, thinking about everything that had brought him here. Humans had only made contact with the galactic community 50 years ago. In that time, they had earned a reputation. Not a good one. Other species had watched Earth's history with horror. The wars, the violence, the way humans fought each other over land, over ideas, over nothing at all. To the galaxy, humans were dangerous, unstable, primitive. Most species avoided humans. Some actively hated them. The only reason Taiho was allowed into the academy was because of a treaty signed 10 years ago. Earth had agreed to provide resources to the galactic government in exchange for one thing: the right to send human cadets to military training. Most of those cadets never made it past the first month. Taiho intended to be different. Around midnight, gave up on sleep, and walked to the mess hall. It was empty at this hour, a large room filled with metal tables and the smell of food he did not recognize. He sat at a table in the corner and stared at nothing. You look lost." Taiho looked up. A woman stood a few meters away, holding a cup of something warm. She had black hair, brown eyes, and a face that looked familiar in a way he could not explain. Then he realized why. She was human. "I'm Yuna," she said, sitting across from him. "I work in the weapons research division. Engineer. Been here 5 years." 5 years? Taiho was surprised. "I thought humans did not last long here. Most don't." Yuna took a sip from her cup. "I learned early. Keep your head down. Do your work better than everyone else. And never, ever give them a reason to send you home." She looked at him with serious eyes. "They will try to break you in the first week. Every instructor, every senior cadet, every alien who thinks humans are weak. They will push you until you quit or fail. Don't let them." "I don't plan to." "Good." She stood up. "Get some sleep. You'll need it." And Taiho, he looked at her. "Whatever happens, remember that you're not alone here. There are 2 of us now. That's twice as many as before." She smiled slightly and walked away. Taiho returned to the barracks and lay down on his bed. Rilo was sleeping a few beds away, his black scales rising and falling with each breath. In the dim light, Taiho could see the other cadets. Aliens from dozens of different species, all training to become warriors. Tomorrow, he would begin training with them. He would run when they ran, fight when they fought, and learn everything they learned. He would be slower than them, weaker than them. He would fall down more times than he could count, but he would get up every time. That was what humans did. That was what made them dangerous in a way the galaxy did not understand. Not their strength, not their technology, their refusal to stay down. Taiho closed his eyes. The dying star outside cast orange light through the station's windows. It was old and weak, but it still burned. So would he. Training began at exactly 0600. Taiho stood in a line with 40 other cadets in a massive hall. The walls were gray metal. The floor was cold. The air smelled like sweat and something else. Fear, maybe. At the front of the hall stood Instructor Ven. Ven was a Korath. His species was known across the galaxy as the greatest warriors to ever live. He stood 3 meters tall, with dark blue skin and 4 muscular arms. Each arm carried scars from different battles. His face was hard and flat, with 4 yellow eyes that seemed to see everything at once. When he spoke, his voice echoed through the hall like thunder. "You are nothing," Ven said. "You are soft. You are weak. You are children who think they understand war." He began walking along the line of cadets, looking at each one. "I will teach you what war really means. Some of you will learn. Most of you will fail. Few of you will die." He stopped in front of Taiho. "And some of you," Ven said quietly, "should not be here at all." Taiho looked straight ahead and said nothing. The first month was physical training. Running, climbing, fighting. The exercises were designed for species with multiple arms, thick bones, or natural armor. Taiho had none of these things. He had soft skin, thin bones, and only 2 arms. Every exercise was harder for him than for anyone else. On the first day, they ran 20 kilometers through a course that changed gravity at random. Taiho finished last, nearly an hour behind the next slowest cadet. On the 3rd day, they climbed a wall that was 50 meters tall and covered in sharp edges. Taiho fell 4 times. His hands were bleeding when he finally reached the top. On the 7th day, they fought each other in hand-to-hand combat. Relo defeated Taiho in less than 10 seconds. The Sethron's claws left 3 cuts across Taiho's chest. "Stay down, human," Rilo said, standing over him. "This is not your place." Taiho got up. He lost the next fight too. And the one after that. Every day he was beaten. Every night, he treated his wounds alone in the barracks. Every morning, he returned to training. Some cadets laughed at him. Others ignored him completely. Instructor Ven watched him with those 4 yellow eyes but said nothing. Taiho could not tell if the instructor was waiting for him to quit or simply enjoying his suffering. Yuna found him in the medical bay one night, wrapping bandages around his ribs. "You look terrible," she said. "Thank you." She sat beside him. "You know they're taking bets on when you'll quit? The current favorite is end of week 3. I hope someone bet on never." One person did. She smiled slightly. Me. Taiho finished wrapping his ribs. Why do you believe in me? You don't know me. 'Cause I see the way you get up, Yuna said. Every time they knock you down, you get up, not angry, not crying, just up, like falling is part of the plan. That scares them more than strength ever could. In week 6, the training changed. Instructor Ven gathered the cadets in a different hall. This one was smaller, with reinforced walls and a heavy door. In the center of the room stood a large metal plate, about 2 meters tall and 1 meter wide. It was smooth and gray, and it seemed to absorb the light around it. This, Ven said, is a void shield. He pressed a button on his arm. The plate began to glow faintly. Void shields are made from aetheryte, the strongest material in the known galaxy. Aetherites mined from the cores of neutron stars. It takes 10 years to gather enough for a single shield, and it is worth every second. Ben picked up a plasma rifle from a table nearby. He aimed at the shield and fired. A bolt of blue energy hit the plate and vanished. Not bounced. Not scattered. Just gone. The shield was completely unmarked. The cadets murmured in surprise, then fired again. And again. Each shot disappeared into the shield, like water into sand. Then he picked up a different weapon. A laser cannon. He fired a focused beam at the shield for 10 full seconds. When he stopped, the shield looked exactly the same. Kinetic rounds, Ven said, picking up a heavy gun that fired metal slugs. He emptied the entire magazine into the shield. The slugs hit and fell to the ground, flattened into discs. The shield did not have a single scratch. No weapon can break this, Ven declared. Not plasma. Not lasers. Not missiles. Not anything. The void shield is the foundation of galactic defense. Every ship, every station, every fortress uses aetherite barriers. Learn to trust the shield, and you will never fall in battle. The cadets nodded. This was fact. This was truth. For 10,000 years. No weapon had ever broken a void shield. But Taiho did not nod. He stared at the shield with a strange look in his eyes. Not doubt. Something else. Something that looked almost like curiosity. After the session ended, the other cadets left. Taiho stayed behind. He walked up to the void shield and studied it closely. He ran his fingers along its surface. It was cold and perfectly smooth. He was still there an hour later when Yuna found him. "What are you doing?" she asked. Thinking about what? Taiho did not answer immediately. He was looking at the flattened slugs on the ground, then at the plasma burns that were not there, then at the shield itself. Every weapon they tested, he said slowly, was an energy weapon. Plasma, lasers, heat, radiation. The galaxy has been using energy weapons for thousands of years. So what if that's not the only way to break something? Yuna looked at him carefully. "What are you thinking?" Taiho finally turned to face her. His eyes were calm, but behind them was something that made Yuna suddenly nervous. "I'm thinking like a human." He walked past her and left the hall. Yuna stood alone for a moment, looking at the void shield. It was smooth and gray and perfect. No weapon could break it. That was what everyone said. That was what everyone believed. She remembered her own words from weeks ago. Keep your head down. Do not give them a reason to send you home. Taiho was about to do the opposite, and somehow, she knew she would help him, every night for the next 2 weeks. Taiho disappeared. After training ended and the other cadets went to rest, he walked to the Academy archives. The archives were deep in the station, past the engineering level and the power core. Few cadets ever went there. The knowledge stored in the archives was considered old and useless. The galaxy had already learned everything worth learning, or so everyone believed. Taiho did not believe this. He sat at a terminal and began reading. He read about aetheryte. He read about how it was formed in the hearts of neutron stars. He read about its molecular structure, its heat resistance, its energy absorption properties. He read every scientific paper, every military report, every test result he could find. The information was always the same. Aetheryte was unbreakable. Thousands of weapons had been tested against it over 10,000 years. None had worked. Plasma cannons, laser beams, particle accelerators, fusion bombs. Every kind of weapon the galaxy had ever created had failed. But Taiho noticed something strange. Every weapon tested was an energy weapon. The galaxy had moved beyond physical weapons thousands of years ago. Energy weapons were cleaner, faster, and more efficient. They did not need heavy ammunition. They did not create debris. They were the logical choice for advanced civilizations, so no one used projectile weapons anymore. No one fired solid objects at high speeds. Why would they? It was primitive. It was old. It was beneath the great species of the galaxy, which meant no one had ever tested what a solid projectile could do to. Aetheryte Taiho leaned back in his chair and thought about this. Aetheryte was designed to absorb and disperse energy. Heat, light, radiation, electromagnetic force. When a plasma bolt hit the shield, the energy spread out across the entire surface and disappeared. The shield did not break because the force was never concentrated in one place. But what about a physical object? Not a slow bullet that would flatten on impact. Something faster. Something moving so fast that it carried more kinetic energy than any plasma bolt. Something that would hit a single point on the shield. With all its force concentrated in one tiny space, Taiho began doing calculations. The numbers made his heart beat faster. 3 days later, he found Yuna in her workshop. The engineering level was filled with machines and tools and half-finished projects. Yuna was working on something when he walked in, her hands covered in grease. "You look like you haven't slept in days," she said. "I need your help." Yuna put down her tools. "What kind of help?" Taiho told her everything. His research, his calculations, his theory about aetheryte and kinetic force. When he finished, Yuna was silent for a long time. "Hey, you want to build a railgun?" she finally said. "Yes." "A magnetic accelerator that fires a solid projectile at a fraction of light. Speed?" "Yes." "To test against a void?" "Shield?" "Yes." Yuna closed her eyes. "Do you understand what you're asking? If you're right, you'll change everything the galaxy believes about defense. If you're wrong, you'll be expelled. Probably arrested. Maybe executed. I understand. And you want to do it anyway." Taiho met her eyes. "Someone has to ask the question. For 10,000 years, no one has asked. Everyone just accepted that the shield was unbreakable because everyone else said so. That's not science. That's faith. And faith can be wrong." Yuna was quiet for another long moment. Then she laughed softly. "You're insane," she said. "Completely insane." She picked up a data pad and handed it to him. "Write down the specifications you need. I'll see what I can find." Taiho sent a message to Earth through a secure channel. He requested specific parts: magnetic coils, power cells, tungsten rods, things that no one in the galaxy used anymore, things that would arrive in a crate marked as personal effects. The crate arrived 3 weeks later. Yuna helped him assemble the weapon in secret. They worked at night in a forgotten storage room on the lowest level of the station. The work was slow and difficult. Human weapons were primitive by galactic standards. There were no instruction files, no helpful machines. Everything had to be done by hand. Taiho learned things he never knew: how magnetic coils could accelerate metal, how to balance the power flow so the weapon didn't explode, how to aim something that moved faster than anything the galaxy had ever fired. Yuna was a good teacher, and despite her fear, she was starting to believe. "I ran the simulations," she said one night, watching Taiho connect the final power cell. "The math checks out. A tungsten rod at 15% of light speed would carry enough kinetic energy to crack a battleship in half." "What about aetheryte?" "I don't know." She looked at the weapon they had built. It was ugly, brutal. A metal tube with exposed coils and wires connected to a power pack the size of a small box. It looked nothing like the sleek weapons of the galaxy. "This might work," she admitted. "Or it might do nothing. Aetheryte is strange. Energy dispersion might apply to kinetic force too. There's no way to know without testing." Taiho picked up a tungsten slug. It was small and heavy, barely the size of his thumb. But at the speed the railgun would fire it, this little piece of metal would become a weapon beyond anything the galaxy had imagined. Then we test it, he said. How? You can't just walk into a training hall and shoot at a void shield. They'll stop you before you get close. Taiho smiled. It was a small smile, but there was something dangerous in it. They won't stop me, he said. They'll invite me. Yuna stared at him. What are you planning? Something very human. He put the tungsten slug in his pocket and left the storage room. Yuna watched him go, her heart beating fast. She had helped build a weapon that might change history, or might destroy them both. For the first time in 5 years, she didn't care about keeping her head down. Some things were worth the risk. The training hall was full when Instructor Ven began his demonstration. 50 cadets stood in neat rows, watching as the Karth warrior showed them the void shield once again. It was a routine lesson. The same lesson that had been taught for thousands of years at military academies across the galaxy. Ven fired a plasma bolt at the shield. It vanished. He fired a laser beam. It disappeared. He threw a grenade. The explosion washed over the shield like water over stone. When the smoke cleared, the surface was perfectly unmarked. The void shield is your greatest ally, Ven said. Trust it. Believe in it. When you stand behind this shield, nothing in the universe can touch you. The cadets nodded. This was truth. This was fact. Any questions? Silence. There were never questions. What was there to question? Then a voice spoke from the back of the group. I have a question. Everyone turned. Taiho stepped forward, his face calm. Behind him, Rilo's yellow eyes went wide with surprise. The other cadets whispered to each other. Instructor Ven's 4 eyes focused on the human. What is your question, Cadet? You said no weapon can break the shield. I would like to test that. Whispers became louder. Ven raised one of his 4 hands and the hall went silent. You think you can break a void shield? Ven asked. His voice was not angry. It was amused. You, a human? With what? With a weapon from Earth? Laughter spread through the cadets. Even Ven smiled, showing teeth that could bite through metal. Human weapons are primitive, Ven said. Your species still uses chemical explosives and metal projectiles. We stopped using such things 10,000 years ago. They are weak, slow, useless against modern defense systems. Then you have nothing to worry about, Taiho replied. Let me try. Ven studied him. The Korath had spent decades training warriors. He had seen cadets try to prove themselves in foolish ways before. Most failed. Some died. But there was something different about this human. Something in his eyes that was neither fear nor stupidity. It was certainty. Very well, Ven said. Bring your weapon. We will see what human technology can do. Word spread through the academy within hours. The human cadet was going to challenge the void shield. The impossible, unbreakable void shield. With a primitive earth weapon. It was the most ridiculous thing anyone had heard in years. By the time the test was scheduled, half the station wanted to watch. The demonstration hall was packed. Cadets filled every space along the walls. Officers stood in the back. Engineers from the weapons division came to see the show. Even the command staff appeared in the observation deck above. Admiral Dorn himself arrived. The admiral was old, his gray skin wrinkled, and his movements slow. He had commanded the academy for 30 years. He had seen countless cadets come and go. He had approved the human's admission himself. Though he had expected the boy to fail like all the others, now he stood in the observation deck with his arms crossed. Watching, Taiho walked into the hall carrying a long metal case. Yuna followed behind him, her hands shaking slightly. She had helped him prepare the railgun that morning. She had checked every connection, every power cell, every calculation. Everything was ready. Whether it would work was another question. Instructor Ven waited in the center of the hall. Beside him stood a full-size void shield plate, mounted on a heavy stand against the far wall. It was the same shield they used for all demonstrations. The same shield that had never been scratched. Human has made a challenge, Ven announced to the crowd. He believes his primitive weapon can damage the void shield. I have agreed to let him try. Laughter rippled through the hall. Tai-Ho ignored it. He set down the metal case and opened it. Inside was the RALGUN. The laughter stopped. The weapon looked wrong. Alien in a different way. It was not sleek or elegant like galactic weapons. It was brutal, ugly, a thick metal tube connected to magnetic coils, powered by a box that hummed with energy. There were no graceful lines, no glowing displays, just metal and wire and raw power. Rallo pushed through the crowd to get a better look. What is that thing? A railgun, Tai-Ho said, lifting the weapon. It uses electromagnetic force to accelerate a solid projectile to 15% of light speed. A projectile? Rilo laughed. You're going to throw a rock at the shield? Something like that? Tai-Ho carried the railgun to the firing position 20 meters from the shield. He set it on a small stand and began connecting the power cells. His movements were calm and precise. He had practiced this 100 times. Yuna stood nearby, watching. Her heart was beating so fast, she thought it might burst. Instructor Ven watched with all 4 eyes. Whenever you are ready, human. Tai-Ho reached into his pocket and pulled out a small tungsten slug. It was barely the size of his thumb, dark gray and perfectly shaped. He loaded it into the railgun's chamber. The hall was silent. Every eye was on him. Admiral Doran leaned forward in the observation deck. Tai-Ho looked at the void shield. It was smooth and gray and perfect. For 10,000 years, it had protected the galaxy. For 10,000 years, it had never failed. Today, that might change. He thought about everything that had brought him here. The training, the pain, the falls. The way the other cadets laughed at him. The way Instructor Ven looked at him like he was nothing. He thought about Yuna, who had believed in him when no one else did. He thought about Earth, and all the humans who would never get a chance like this. Then he stopped, thinking. He pressed the trigger. The sound was like nothing anyone had ever heard. Not a hum, not a whine, not the clean discharge of an energy weapon. It was a crack. A single, sharp crack that seemed to break the air itself. The tungsten slug left the railgun at 45,000 kilometers per second. It crossed the 20 meters to the shield in less than a microsecond. It was invisible. Just a blur of force that existed and then was gone. It hit the void shield dead center, and for one long, terrible moment, nothing happened. Laughter began to build in the crowd. Rello was smiling. Instructor Ven was shaking his head. Then someone pointed at the shield. Look, everyone looked. A line had appeared on the surface of the void shield. A thin, jagged line, spreading from the center like lightning frozen in glass. The unbreakable shield had cracked. Silence filled the hall. Complete, absolute silence. No one moved. No one spoke. No one even breathed. Every eye was locked on the void shield. The cracks spread slowly across its surface. Thin lines branching out like veins in a dying leaf. The material that had protected civilizations for 10,000 years was breaking. Right in front of them. Right now, Instructor Ven stared at the shield with all 4 of his eyes. His forearms hung limp at his sides. In 30 years of military service, he had seen battles and death and things that would break most minds. But he had never seen this. He had never imagined this. The crack grew larger. Pieces of etherite began to fall away from the edges, dropping to the floor with soft clicks. Each piece was worth more than a warship. Each piece was supposed to be eternal. Admiral Dorn gripped the railing of the observation deck. His old hands were shaking. He had built his entire career on the void shield. Every ship design, every fortress, every defensive plan for the last century, all of it was based on one simple truth. That truth had just been shattered. Tai-Ho set down the railgun and turned to face the crowd. You built your entire defense system around dispersing energy, he said. His voice was quiet, but in the silence everyone heard it. Plasma, lasers, heat, radiation, etherite absorbs all of these things. It spreads the energy across its surface until it becomes nothing. He pointed at the cracked shield. But you never tested kinetic force. You never asked what would happen if something solid hit the shield at high enough speed. A physical object concentrates all its force in one tiny point. There's nothing to disperse. Nothing to spread out. Just pure impact. You picked up the flattened tungsten slug that had fallen to the floor after hitting the shield. It was hot and bent, barely recognizable. Galaxy forgot about physics, Taiho said. You got so advanced that you stopped thinking about simple things. Mass times velocity. Force equals pressure times area. The oldest equations in the universe. He held up the slug. Humans never forgot. Rello stepped forward. His yellow eyes were wide, his black scales raised in a display of shock. For weeks he had laughed at the human. For weeks he had called him weak and primitive and useless. Now he understood humans were not weak. They were just different. They thought differently. They solved problems differently. They came from a world where they had spent thousands of years fighting each other with every tool they could find. Rocks, arrows, bullets, bombs. They had never stopped. Being dangerous? How? Rallo asked. How did you know? Taiho looked at him. I didn't know. I just asked a question that no one else had asked, and then I tested it. Admiral Dorn walked down from the observation deck. The crowd parted for him like water. He was old and slow, but there was something in his eyes that made everyone step back. He stopped in front of Taiho. For a long moment, the Admiral just looked at him. At this small, soft-skinned human who had just destroyed 10,000 years of military certainty with a single shot. Then the Admiral laughed. It was a deep, rumbling sound that echoed through the hall. Not angry, not cruel. Just the laughter of someone who had lived long enough to appreciate the unexpected. Send a message to High Command, Dorn said to an officer nearby. Tell them the humans have made the void shield obsolete. He looked back at Taiho. Tell them we need more of these cadets. Immediately, the crowd erupted. Cadets were talking, shouting, arguing. Some were angry. Some were afraid. Some were looking at Taiho with something that might have been respect. Instructor Vin walked to the cracked shield and touched it with one of his 4 hands. The surface was still cold, but now there were gaps where the material had fallen away. He could see through to the wall behind. He turned to Taiho. His 4 eyes were unreadable. You have made a very powerful enemy today, Ven said. The guilds that mine Etherite will want you dead. The governments that depend on void shields will call this a lie. The military leaders who built their careers on this technology will fight you. Taiho met his gaze. I know, and you did it anyway. Someone had to. Ven was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, he raised one of his forearms and placed his scarred hand on Taiho's shoulder. You have shown more courage today than most warriors show in a lifetime, Ven said. I was wrong about humans. I was wrong about you. He turned and walked away, leaving Taiho alone in the center of the hall. That night, Rilo came to Taiho in the barracks. The Sethron stood awkwardly by Taiho's bed, his clawed hands clasped in front of him. I mocked you, Rilo said. I called you weak. I thought your species was beneath mine. Taiho looked up at him. You weren't the only one, but I was the loudest. Rello extended one clawed hand toward Taiho. It was a gesture of respect among his people, a sign that one warrior recognized another. I was wrong. You have proven yourself. You have earned the right to stand among us. Taiho shook his hand. Thank you. Rello's yellow eyes glittered. Don't thank me. This is just the beginning. You have shaken the galaxy today. Things are going to change very fast. You will need allies. Are you offering? I am, Rilo smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. I want to see what you do next. Later, Yuna found Taiho standing alone at a viewport on the observation deck. The dying star hung in the darkness outside, casting its orange light across his face. You did it, she said, standing beside him. You actually did it. We did it, he replied. I couldn't have built that railgun without you, Yuna smiled. So what now? The galaxy knows about humans. They know we can break their shields. Everything is going to change. Taiho looked at the star. It was old and weak, but it still burned. In a few million years, it would finally die. But until then, it would keep fighting against the darkness, just like humans had always done. Now we keep going, Taiho said. We find the next impossible thing. The next problem no one has solved. And we solve it, Yuna laughed. You make it sound easy. It's not easy. But it's what we do. We fall down. We get back up. We ask questions everyone else is afraid to ask. We break things that aren't supposed to break. He turned to face her. That's what makes us human. Yuna looked at him for a long moment. Then she nodded. So, she said, what impossible thing are we breaking next? Taiho looked back at the dying star. Beyond it, the galaxy stretched out forever. Billions of planets. Thousands of species. 10,000 years of knowledge and power and certainty. And somewhere out there, another question waiting to be asked. Give me a week, he said. And somewhere, in the great silence between the stars, the universe held its breath, because the humans were just getting started.